Jen Statsky from Hacks, Bruce Miller from The Handmaid's Tale, Mark Roybal from Mare of Easttown, Mimi Leader from The Morning Show, Adele Romanski from The Underground Railroad, John Hoffman from Only Murders in the Building. All of you PGA Awards nominees this year, and I'm Denton Davidson for Gold Derby. And first of all, welcome to this roundtable of producers. It's fun to have people from all different genres, limited series, commas, dramas. It's all covered right here. And I just want to talk to you about, as a producer, we're in this awards season right now. What do awards mean? What can they mean for a television series in terms of keeping it on the air sometimes? I mean, getting the visibility that you need. What have they meant to you, or have you had that experience in the past? I'll start with Jen.
I mean, they are helpful, right? Like it helps, like you said, visibility. It helps get the show's name out there. And if you can say like, oh, it won these things and it nominated that way. So yeah, it's a huge advantage to have nominations that you can point to and hopefully wins. And yeah, so it's good, I guess, is the takeaway. That's the genius statement on awards. They're good, says Jen.
How about you, Bruce? Has it changed any trajectory for you in any shows that you've been a part of?
Oh, sure. I think, at the beginning of Handmaids, it was we got a TCA award, and I think that was the biggest thing in terms of putting us on people's radars. The critics had seen it so far before. So, I think the success of our show is a lot about, that part of the process. But nowadays, just making it is so hard, and I feel so proud of my other producers, what they were able to pull off. I mean, it was astonishing. The first few months, everybody here went through it. I think now I just appreciate them more, even more, that under these circumstances, people are doing such great work. So I think at least now they mean something to me. That I have, Adele's response, which is I don't remember anything from the first year of the show. So I'm sure it was lovely, but it wasn't me.
Mark, how about you? What's been your experience?
Oh, we were like Underground Railroad. We came out last spring, so we were ahead of the Emmys, and so it's a little bit strange to be going through it now and talking about the guilds, which are after the Emmys, and so we're in a weird cycle. But for us to be recognized by the guilds, and it's great, but I think it's so it doesn't help us for like viewership or anything like that, because we're already out. But I think for the nominees, it's great because it means a lot for the careers, right? I mean, they're getting recognition to be recognized by their peers, but it means a lot for them within the industry. And I know that it gets them attention for amongst the studios and amongst their peers and people who are gets the recognition amongst people who are looking for jobs, and it just it's very validating. That's hugely significant, especially for the people who are I know in our crew who've been nominated for the first time, and that's huge. So that's been very rewarding for many of our nominees.
And Mimi, what's your experience been?
Well, it's been a long experience. And I would say that I've been on both ends of the receiving and not receiving. And I would say that awards are always welcome and very satisfying, and really in many ways validate what you are doing. And, the first season of Morning Show, we received, I think, 8 Emmy nominations. And this year, a lot of Guild nominations, and it's very rewarding. But I can also say that, when we were doing The Leftovers, it was one of the most life-changing experiences for me and for everybody, for all the actors, Damon Lindelof. It was an extraordinary time, and we worked really hard, and the critics loved us. They loved us, and it was really so wonderful and gratifying. And but no love, from the award community. And so it was really interesting how you balance that feeling, and I think the answer probably is really, you know, we don't do it for awards. We do it because we love it and we're a little crazy because we do it and we work so hard and it's painful, but it's also very, you know, very satisfying, and I'm very grateful for all of it.
Adela, how about you?
I mean, I agree with what everyone is saying, and I guess I would just add to that when specific to us in a show like Underground Railroad, but also, you know, Barry's body of work at large, I think when you're making work that perhaps challenges your audience in ways that they're not as excited to maybe sit down and be challenged, the being inside of the awards conversation means that you're in a conversation, right? And I think it's very noisy out there, like both in terms of film and television, and there's so much television, but also the film, and everything is sort of competing. Oh, and then also there's PlayStation, and also there's podcasts, and also like maybe you just want to take a hike, you know. So to be able to just rise up in the conversation, and if awards are a way to do that, to get people to maybe have a second thought about sitting down and engaging with your show, then yeah, like Jen says, awards are good.
John, how about you?
Well, I mean, I agree with everything everyone's saying, of course, and it is tremendously humbling in this particular time, because of the level of work that I watch all of the shows that are on this panel and feel like, yeah, they got it right. And there's probably 10 more that could be here as well, that, you know, 20 more. It's quite a time creatively in television. So it's very humbling, and it's also relieving. Because there is the onus, I think, for any of us producers, sort of with the talents that are involved in our shows, we want them to do the thing that our shows are doing at this moment, which is, you know, get the recognition for them. But it's rare air, as Mimi was saying, you know, it can be you can make a great thing and it doesn't get that for some reason. So to enjoy that and to live in that space is incredible. And again, just the other thing for a first season of a show like ours, to you know, get attention and to maybe allow an audience. Like I come from the theater, and I remember them saying, like, back in the day, it was like, if, you know, there was the standing ovations started after the New York Times rave. And so in that way, that's what happens here sometimes when things like this happen. So people get a bit of a pat on the back if they feel something's good, and then they learn of recognition that your show is getting. So it's invaluable that way.
And if there's, you know, young people aspiring maybe to be a producer or work in television or film, I always like asking, and I'm curious to know, what was your break in this industry in terms of becoming a producer? And, you know, was it a positive experience? Was it crazy? What was sort of your big break in the industry that led you to where you are today? And I'll start with Jen.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure I'm interested to hear everyone's different paths. Since I'm like a writer producer, I kind of came up through the traditional writer's room route. So my, weirdly enough, my break, I guess, if you want to call it, was I on Twitter. I was writing jokes on Twitter like a decade ago, and caught the attention of the head writer at the time at Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. And that was my first like writing, got hired off of that. And that was my first writing job. And then just transitioned into narrative when I started working for Mike Schur on Parks and Rec, and then just kind of started at the lowest level staff writer in a narrative TV room and worked my way up. And then as you do that in narrative, you become a producer inherently, your role becomes expanded. You go to set for your episode, you're on set and dealing with actors and crew and props and all that stuff. And so my path to producing was through that, being a writer, going to set for my episodes, kind of learning everything that way. And then eventually pitched Hacks and became, you know, EP of my own show. And so, yeah, that was my path.
Bruce, what about you?
As a producer, I think it was, I got a job on ER, you know, after Mimi left. And so, but I didn't know anything about producing, and I had producing in front of my name. And John Wells, who ran the show at that time, was such he would delegate for realsies. So he would give you a job to do as a producer, and that was your job. And that was the first time I'd been on other shows as a producer, and they just never give you anything to do. And not only did he give it to you, it was yours. And so that really was the beginning, I think, of understanding not just the job, but like what goes into making a decision. That when you get a decision, you have to talk to 65 other people. And so that was my first. So John Wells, really, I think I owe him a couple of years he certainly taught me more than I delivered for him. So I probably owe him a few years as a producer.
Mark, where did you get your start?
It's a pretty straightforward story. I got my break actually. I wanted to get into the art business, and somebody said, "Don't get into the art business. You're not going to make any money there. Get into the movie business." And I didn't know anything about it, but I loved movies, and so I started interning for a producer and just kind of worked my way up, and stuck with it for a really long time, and just started learning the business that way, and then kind of moved around afterwards, and worked for a studio at one point, and then just wanted to get back to producing, and then left 20th Century Fox a couple of years ago to get back to producing. So it was just kind of a fairly linear path, but from apprenticeship to eventually getting back to producing. Fairly straightforward.
Mimi.
Well, I've been directing for about a year, and I was hired to direct 2 episodes of a show called China Beach that John Sacred Young, William Broyles created, and John Wells had just come on as a producer. And I had worked with John Wells. We had many firsts together when he was a story editor, and I did my first television show, and he wrote it. And so that's where we met. Anyway, I came onto the show. I directed the episode that John Wells had written. And then Sacred Young calls me into his office and says, "We want you to join the show." And I said, "As what?" I mean, this is China Beach. It's the late 80s. And, I came up in the independent world. My father was an indie director. So I worked with him for many years in my 20s. And so anyway, I became a producer on that show. And it was really exciting, oh, I'm a producer, I'm a creative producer. And John Wells would say, first of all, I was the second person to ever do this job of producing, directing. Greg Hoblet was the first on Hill Street Blues. And so, I'm this creative producer, and John says, no, we're going to have producing meetings every week. And he taught me and Lydia Woodward and Carol Flint how to produce. And, then
twice a week.
Yes. And it was really, the school of John Wells, where you learn how to run a show, how to budget it, how to do everything. And then on ER, when I was directing, Spielberg's company was producing that show, and he came on set one day, and then we met, and he wanted me to come on to another TV show, a police show that he was doing. And, we had an audience of 52 million people, and I said, he called me and said, "We'd love you to join, our show and produce it." And I said, "Well, why would I leave ER to do another TV show?" And then he called me and said, "I'm calling you not to do some lousy little TV show, but, to direct The Peacemaker, DreamWorks' first feature film." Anyway, those are the breaks.
Wow. And Adela.
I just gotta say, I have deep nostalgia for tuning in every week to watch ER. I really miss that, and I'm sad for this generation who's never going to know what that was like.
I know.
What was my break? I mean, honestly, I think I've been thinking about it and listening to everybody's stories, and I think it's a series of mini breaks, starting with being born to the parents I was born to, and the oldest of 5 children, and having the opportunity for the education I had, and dropping out of theater school in college to go to film school. which then I met the people that I now work with. And then I made one little indie film, and it went well at festivals. It had some nice awards recognition, parlayed into like working with Barry again after so many years, and on and on and on. Like it's just a cascading, sort of a cascading effect of like, when things could go this way, they go this way, and then this way, and then this way. And it's kind of all of it, I think.
And John.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all could point to a very circuitous, and for myself at least, peculiar route to all of this. I have a very strange resume, and I've done a lot of different things, but secretly the sort of thing behind the scenes in some ways, weirdly, is that I was a screenwriter for many, many years in Hollywood, and I was working for all of the studios with projects. I was learning a lot about writing, and also learning a lot about the projects that I was picking or being assigned to were the ones that were going to be the most difficult to get made. So a lot of them didn't, and it took me forever to come to television. But what the break that happened to get me there, I think after being intimidated as a screenwriter, I'd been working alone so much, and I was intimidated by a writer's room because I didn't know how that might work. So the entree for me there was HBO, who I had developed many projects, again, difficult to make projects there. And they'd come to know me, and so I guess pictured me as more of a producer in certain ways because of that development experience. And they invited me to sort of join up on this show called Looking. And they had they had a young creator, Michael Lannon, who was wonderful, but hadn't had a lot of experience, and Andrew Haig, who's a brilliant independent film director, and a dear friend of mine now, but he had no television experience that way. So I was brought on as the experienced television guy, having not really done that. And so, but they were also very welcoming and created a very non-intimidating space. And so I directed a feature family film for MGM back in the day, and I had more set experience in certain ways in various forms, but that experience was the one where I immediately dove in and sort of found myself just producing because the other guys didn't know as much yet, and they quickly were learning. But it was trial by fire a little bit that way, but a great one.
Well, thanks to all of you for sitting down. It's been great to speak with all of you and hear all of your stories and discuss the great work you've done. Congratulations on the PGA Awards nominations once again. I just want to say thanks to Jen Statsky from Hacks, Bruce Miller from The Handmaid's Tale, Mark Roybal from Mare of Easttown, Mimi Leader from The Morning Show, Adele Romanski from The Underground Railroad, and John Hoffman from Only Murders in the Building. And thanks again, guys. This was great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So nice.
Congratulations, everybody.
Yeah, congrats to everyone.
Same here.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah.